On another day, in another year, it will surely be the turn of the AFL. But this spectacle of a sport belonged to Green Bay.
In Green Bay, Wisconsin, you are founded in a building that belongs to the Green Bay Press-Gazette by Curly Lambeau and George Calhoun. Lambeau will be your general manager, captain, and halfback, and Calhoun will take on a variety of roles such as publicity director and team manager. Your home games will be played at Hagemeister Park, and you will be sponsored by the Indian Packing Company. Willard Ryan will serve as your head coach. You play your first game on September 14th, and you defeat the Menominee North End Athletic Club 53-0. You end the year with a 10-1 record. With all the clubs that are rising and falling, hopefully you will survive for more than one season. Congratulations on making it to a second season. Curly Lambeau becomes your head coach, and you finish with a 9-1-1 record. This year you lose to the Chicago Staleys by a score of 20-0. While you may not have heard of the Chicago Staleys, you've definitely heard of the Chicago Bears. In 1922, the Chicago Staleys would change their name to the Chicago Bears. Additionally, you join the American Professional Football Association, and you drop the Indian Packing Company as your sponsor. You end this season with a 7-2-1 record. You end the year with a 4-3-3 record. You move from Hagermeister Park to Bellleaf Park, and Andrew Turnbull becomes your first president. You hold your first stock sale, and you finish the season with a 7-2-1 record. You finish the season with an 8-5 record. You move from Bellleaf Park to City Stadium, and you finish with an 8-5 record. You finish with a 7-3-3 record. You finish with a 7-2-1 record. Ray Everin becomes your new president, and you finish with a 6-4-3 record. You add halfback John McNally, tackle Robert Hubbard, and lineman Mike Mikowski to your roster. W. Weber Kelly becomes your new president, and you finish with a 12-0-1 record. Congratulations on your first NFL championship. Lambeau retires as a player, but he remains as your general manager and head coach. QB Arnie Herbert is added to your roster, and Gerald F. Clifford becomes your new VP, and Lee Jones becomes your new president. You finish with a 10-3-1 record, and you win your second NFL championship. Hot damn! You win your third NFL championship after finishing 12-2. The Lumberjack Band also creates your fight song, Go You Packers Go. Unfortunately, Willard Bent falls out of the stands during a home game. You add fullback Clark Hinkle to your roster, and you finish 10-3-1. Unfortunately, you do not win an NFL championship because of the 7-1-6 Chicago Bears. You join the NFL's Western Division, and you split your home games between City Stadium in Green Bay and Borchardt Field in Milwaukee. You finish the year with a 5-7-1 record. You move from Borchardt Field to Wisconsin State Fair Park, and you finish 7-6. You add guard Walt Kiesling and wide receiver Don Hudson to your roster. Willard Bent sues you for the 1931 accident, and he is rewarded roughly $5,000. As a result, the Green Bay Football Corporation goes into receivership, and the Green Bay Packers Incorporated is established. You hold your second stock sale, and you finish 8-4. Cal Hubbard is gone, and you finish 10-1-1. In the NFL championship game, you defeat the Boston Redskins 21-6 for your fourth NFL championship. Walt Kiesling, John McNally, and Mike Mikowski are gone, and you finish 7-4. After finishing 8-3, you return to the NFL championship game, where you lose to the New York Giants 23-17. Congratulations on finishing 9-2. You return to the NFL championship game, where you play against the New York Giants again. This time, you beat them 27-0 for your fifth NFL championship. You finish with a 6-4-1 record. You add back Tony Canadeo to your roster, but you'll lose Arnie Herbert and Clark Hinkle. You and the Bears both finished 10-1. In a game to see who'd advance to the NFL championship, the Bears beat you 33-14. You finish with an 8-2-1 record. You finish with a 7-2-1 record. After finishing 8-2, you beat the New York Giants 14-7 for your sixth NFL championship. You finish with a 6-4 record, and Don Hudson retires at the end of the season. You finished with a 6-5 record. You finished the year with a 6-5-1 record. Amel Fisher becomes your new president, and you finish with a 3-9 record. You end the season with a 2-10 record. Lambeau leaves you for the Chicago Cardinals, and Gene Ronzini becomes your new head coach and general manager. You hold your third stock sale, and you finish with a 3-9 record. After suffering a 7-game losing streak, you end the year with a 3-9 record. You add safety Bobby Dillon to your roster, and you leave Wisconsin State Fair Park for Marquette Stadium. You also finish the year with a 6-6 record. Russ Bogda becomes your new president, and you leave Marquette Stadium for Milwaukee County Stadium. Ronzini is fired after 10 games, and Ray McLean and Hugh DeVore are brought in as interim coaches. You also finish the year with a 2-9-1 record. You add Packers legend wide receiver Max McGee to your roster, and Vernon Llewellyn is hired as the new general manager. Lyle Blackburn is brought on as the new head coach, and you finish the year with a 4-8 record. You finish the year with a 6-6 record. You add QB Bart Starr and tackle Forrest Gregg to your roster, and you finish with a 4-8 record. You add halfback Paul Hornung to your roster, and you leave City Stadium for New City Stadium. The Bears christened this field with a 21-17 victory, and Llewellyn is fired after the season. Your record is 3-9. You add guard Jerry Kramer, fullback Jim Taylor, and linebacker Ray Nitschke to your roster. Dominic Olenczak becomes your new president, and Ray McLean becomes your new head coach. After a 1-10-1 record, McLean is let go, and to illustrate how poorly this team underperformed, here are some of the future Hall of Famers that were on the roster. Bart Starr, Paul Hornung, Jim Taylor, Ray Nitschke, Jim Ringo, Bobby Dillon, Forrest Gregg, and Jerry Kramer. Vince Lombardi is your new head coach and general manager. After a 5-game losing streak, you finished the year with a 7-5 record. This is your first winning season since 1947. You add safety Willie Wood and defensive end Willie Davis to your roster, and you finish the year with an 8-4 record. Against the Eagles in the NFL Championship game, you lose 17-13. You add cornerback Herb Adderley to your roster, and you finish with an 11-3 record. During 6 of your games, you scored 30 or more points, and in the NFL Championship game, you beat the New York Giants 37-0 for your 7th NFL Championship. You finish with a 13-1 record. You also hold a 267-point differential, and you shut out 3 opponents. In the NFL Championship game, you beat the New York Giants 16-7 for your 8th NFL Championship. Your defense was so elite that the Giants only scored off of a blocked punt. Jim Ringo is gone, and Paul Hornung is suspended indefinitely for betting on NFL games and for associating with undesirable persons. You finished the year 11-2-1, and you missed the NFL Championship thanks to an 11-1-2 Bears team. In the Playoff Bowl, you beat the Cleveland Browns 40-23. Paul Hornung returns to the team, and you finish with an 8-5-1 record. You return to the Playoff Bowl, and you lose to the St. Louis Cardinals 24-17. Not mad at all, Vince Lombardi reportedly had this to say about the Playoff Bowl. It was a hinky-dink football game, held in a hinky-dink town, played by hinky-dink players. In June, Curly Lambeau passes away, and City Stadium is renamed to Lambeau Field. As a coach, Lambeau had an impressive career going 229, 134, and 22. He had 6 NFL championships, and he coached for the team from 1920 to 1949. He also played for you from 1919 to 1929. You finished with a 10-3-1 record. Your one tied game causes you to play the Baltimore Colts to see who would advance to the NFL Championship game. You beat the Colts 13-10, and you defeat the Browns 23-12 for your 9th NFL Championship. You finished 12-2, and Bart Starr is the league MVP. In the NFL Championship game, you beat the Cowboys 34-27, and in Super Bowl I, you beat the Chiefs 35-10. Before moving forward, I want to quickly cover the story of my favorite Packers wide receiver, Max McGee.
Starr dropping straight back, hit his knees, throws, has the ball, touchdown!
At the time of Super Bowl I, Max McGee was 34 years old and an 11-year NFL veteran. He had 4 receptions during the regular season, and he didn't think that he would play in the Super Bowl. On the eve of Super Bowl I, McGee broke team curfew and he got completely wasted. He returned around 6:30 in the morning, and unfortunately for him, Packers starting wideout Boyd Dowler would re-injure his shoulder, and McGee would be forced to play. Not only would McGee score the Super Bowl's first touchdown off of a one-handed catch, he would also finish the game with 7 receptions for 137 yards with 2 touchdowns. Paul Hornung and Jim Taylor are gone, and you finish with a 9-4-1 record. In the conference championship game, you beat the 11-1-2 LA Rams by a score of 29-7. In the NFL championship game, you defeat the Dallas Cowboys by a score of 21-17 in a game that would become known as the Ice Bowl. This game would become known as the Ice Bowl because, prior to the game, your turf feeding system would malfunction, and when the tarp was removed from the field, it would leave behind moisture that would eventually freeze over. This game spawned the phrase, "Frozen Tundra," for Lambeau Field. With time running out, you are trailing behind the Cowboys 17-14. Let's roll the clip and see what happens.
Watch your keeper now!
Star begins the count. Takes the snap. He has the quarterback sack, and he's leaving the touchdown, and the Packers are out in front. 13 seconds showing on the clock, and the Green Bay Packers are going to be NFL champions for the 3rd straight year.
After defeating the Cowboys, you go on to Super Bowl II, where you would beat the 13-1 Oakland Raiders by a score of 33-14. Max McGee is gone, and Vince Lombardi steps down as your head coach, but he remains your general manager. Phil Bingston becomes your new head coach, and you finish with a 6-7-1 record. Jerry Kramer is gone, and Bingston becomes your new general manager after Lombardi leaves for Washington. You finish with an 8-6 record. Herb Adderley is gone, and you finish with a 6-8 record. On September 3rd, Vince Lombardi would pass away from cancer, and the NFL would rename the Super Bowl trophy to the Vince Lombardi Trophy to honor his memory. Not only was Lombardi a good coach, but he was also a pretty good person. He was a 2-time Super Bowl champion, a 5-time NFL champion, and a 2-time Coach of the Year. He had a 105, 35-6 coaching record. According to Packers.com, during a time of racial segregation in the United States, Lombardi informed local restaurant and bar owners around Green Bay that if they didn't serve all of his players, the Packers would boycott their establishment. This is something that during the 1960s, not every NFL coach would have done for their players. After the 1970 season ended, Bingston would leave your team for San Diego. Dan Devine would become your new head coach and general manager, and you would finish with a 4-8-2 record. Bart Starr has retired as a player, but he remains on your coaching staff as a QB coach. You finish with a 10-4 record, and in a divisional playoff game, you lose to the Redskins 16-3. Ray Nitschke is gone, and you finish with a 5-7-2 record. You start the season with a 3-3 record, and Dan Devine thinks that you need a veteran QB to get you over the hump and back to the playoffs. So you trade for 34-year-old LA Rams QB John Hadl. An All-Pro in 1973, it looks like Hadl was benched in the 1974 season after... He was benched after losing to you in Week 5. Well, that's not very good. How'd you end that year? You ended with a 6-8 record. Well, what'd you give to the LA Rams? You gave them a first, second, and third round pick in the 1975 draft and a first and second round pick in the 1976 draft? Are you kidding me? What about Dan Devine? He would retire after the season ends. Bart Starr becomes your new head coach and general manager, and you finish with a 4-10 record. John Hadl is traded to Houston for 2 draft picks and QB Lynn Dickey. As your QB, Hadl went 7-12 with 9 touchdowns, 29 interceptions, and 3,167 passing yards. I don't think that trade was worth it, and you finished that year with a 5-9 record. You finished the season with a 4-10 record. You add wide receiver James Lofton to your roster, and you start the season 6-1. Unfortunately, playing inferior teams is not sustainable for winning, and you end the year with an 8-5-1 record. You finish with a 5-11 record, and you beat the Minnesota Vikings at home for the first time since the 1970 season. Right. Well, with the decade coming to an end, let's go check on the Vikings and let's see how they did during the 70s. You've always been their bigger brother during my lifetime. Surely that success has been universal, right? Like, the Vikings have always sucked. They made it to the Super Bowl in 1970, 74, 75, and 77. Well, sure, they lost those games, but I bet your fan base could have given up drinking for a week if it meant having a fraction of that success. Starr remains as your head coach, but he gives up the general manager responsibilities. Officially, the general manager position will remain vacant until 1991. Unofficially, Individuals such as Bob Harlan, Tom Miller, Forrest Gregg, and Tom Bratz will take on the general manager responsibilities in the meantime. Your team has such a poor reputation that their first-round pick for the year, defensive end Bruce Clark, would rather go play for the Canadian Football League instead of a down for you. Even though you start the season relatively well with a 12-6 home victory over the Chicago Bears, you end the season with a 5-10-1 record. Not only did you get absolutely butchered at Soldier Field on December 7th by a score of 61-7, you also suffered roughly 27 injuries during the regular season. Led by a strong defensive effort, you are 8-7 and in control of your own destiny. A win over the 9-5-1 Jets will let you taste the postseason. Unfortunately, the Jets beat you by a score of 28-3. Your offense was so bad during the game that you could only muster 84 total yards of offense. Bruce Clark returns to the NFL and he forces you to trade him to the Saints. Robert Perrins becomes your new president and a player strike cuts the season short. Finishing with a 5-3-1 record, you enter the playoffs where you beat the St. Louis Cardinals 41-16. Unfortunately, you proceed to lose to the Cowboys 37-26. Even though last year was rough, this year will be different. You're 8-7 and all you need is a victory over the Chicago Bears to make it to the postseason. Not only are you up by 1, but Walter Payton is also injured on the sideline. Unfortunately for you, the Bears proceed to march down the field and win the game off of a 22-yard field goal. Unfortunately for Bart Starr, he is fired the next day. Having learned nothing from the Bart Starr experiment, you hire Forrest Gregg as your new head coach. You started the season 1-7 before finishing with an 8-8 record. Congratulations on finishing with an 8-8 record. Let's check in on our rival, the Chicago Bears, and let's see how they're doing.
We are the Bears, shuffling through.
Lynn Dickey is gone, and you finish with a 4-12 record. Let's see how the Packers players are responding to this mediocrity.
You can see the ball is gone, and here's McMahon standing there. Here comes Martin. Ball is long gone. What is this? Wow, man, that's ridiculous. He should be out of the game.
Well then. Not only does Ralph Bruno manage to create the original cheesehead out of foam from his mother's couch, but you also manage to find the Magic Man in the 10th round. Furthermore, a new player strike cuts the season short by 1 game and you finish with a 5-9-1 record. Wide receiver Sterling Sharp is added to your roster and head coach Forrest Gregg is gone. Lindy Infante is your new head coach and you finish with a 4-12 record. Tony Mandrick is drafted 2nd overall and Bob Harlan becomes your new president. You finish with a 10-6 record, but you fail to make the postseason. During the season, though, you earned the nickname the Cardiac Pack because you won 4 games by 1 point. Safety Leroy Butler is added to your roster and you finish with a 6-10 record. You finish with a 4-12 record. Quarterback Brett Favre is added to your roster, and Tony Mandrick is gone. If you didn't know, Mandrick infamously failed to live up to the hype, and he is the only top 5 player from his draft class to not be inducted into the Hall of Fame. The players selected after him were Barry Sanders, Derek Thomas, and Deion Sanders. Infante was also fired after the 1991 season, and Mike Holmgren is your new head coach. Ron Wolf is your new general manager. You finished the year with a 9-7 record. Defensive end Reggie White is added to your roster, and on December 26th, Leroy Butler creates the Lambeau Leap. After finishing 9-7, you make the playoffs where you beat the Lions in the wildcard 28-24. Unfortunately, in the divisional round, you lose to the Cowboys 27-17. Halfback Dorsey Levens is added to your roster and you finish with a 9-7 record. Unfortunately, Sterling Sharp suffered a career-ending neck injury towards the end of the season. During the playoffs, you beat the Lions in a wildcard game 16-12. During the divisional round, you lose to the Cowboys 35-9. Wide receiver Antonio Freeman is added to your roster and you stop playing games in Milwaukee. Favre wins his first MVP and you finish with an 11-5 record. In the wildcard game, you beat the Falcons 37-20. In the divisional game, you beat the 49ers 27-17. In the championship game though, you lose to the Cowboys 38-27. Wide receivers Desmond Howard and Andre Rison are added to your roster. Not only do you finish with a 13-3 record, but you also have the number 1 offense, defense, and special teams for that season. Favre wins his second MVP, and in the divisional round of the playoffs, you beat the 49ers 35-14. In the championship round, you beat the Panthers 30-13. In the Super Bowl, not only does your defense force 4 interceptions from Patriots quarterback Drew Bledsoe, but you also beat New England by a score of 35-21. Congratulations on your first Super Bowl trophy since the 1960s.
Back, 2 tight ends set up for the Packers, and Favre back to throw his first one. Rolling deep, has a man open. Andre Rison.
Desmond Howard and Andre Rison are gone, and from late 1997 to early 1998, you hold your fourth stock sale. Despite starting the season 3-2, you end with a 13-3 record, and Brett Favre wins his third MVP. During the playoffs, you beat the Buccaneers in the divisional round 21-7 and the 49ers 23-10 in the championship round. During Super Bowl 32, though, you fall to the Broncos 31-24.
Yards for the touchdown and the lead, 24-17. Elam to Antonio Freeman. Fires the ball and Denver recovers at the 22, and look at the Broncos sideline.
You finish with an 11-5 record. During the wildcard game, you're playing against the 49ers and you're winning by a score of 27-23. There are 8 seconds left and the 49ers have the ball. Surely you'll win this game, right? Let's roll the clip.
3-man rush, and Young stumbles on the way back and fires up the middle. Pass is caught by Owen.
Oh no. Wide receiver Donald Driver is added to your roster, but you lose Reggie White. Mike Holmgren was fired after the 1998 season, and Ray Rhodes is your new head coach. You finish with an 8-8 record. Running back Ahman Green is added to your roster, and Mike Sherman is your new head coach since Ray Rhodes was only around for one season. You finish with a 9-7 record. Mike Sherman assumes general manager duties, and you finish with a 12-4 record. Congratulations on making it back to the playoffs. In the wildcard round, you beat the 49ers 25-15. However, in the divisional round, you lose to the Rams 45-17. In part, this happened because Favre threw 6 interceptions. Leroy Butler and Antonio Freeman are gone, and you finish with a 12-4 record. In the wildcard game, you lose to the Falcons 27-7. This is your first home playoff loss in team history. Antonio Freeman returns, and you finish with a 10-6 record. In the wildcard round, you face Seattle and you beat them 33-27. Let's roll a quick clip.
What do you call?
I'd like to call heads.
Heads is called.
Look at him, he's laughing.
Heads! Seattle has won the toss.
We want a ball, we're going to score.
Turn around.
Oh boy.
How about that from
Seattle's won the toss. We'll receive.
his good day continues with calling heads.
Looks like pressure. Hasselbeck's been audible.
They're coming. The pass is picked off. Intercepted. Back the other way. The Green Bay Packers advance.
Unfortunately, in the divisional round, you lose to the Eagles 20-17.
The 4th and 26, and in essence take over. Plenty of time. Down the middle is Mitchell.
Antonio Freeman is gone, and you finish with a 10-6 record. In a wildcard game, you lose to the Vikings 31-17. QB Aaron Rodgers and safety Nick Collins are added to your roster, and you lose Marco Rivera, Mike Whale, and Darren Sharper. Ted Thompson becomes your new general manager, and you finish with a 4-12 record. Wide receiver Greg Jennings, linebacker AJ Hawk, and cornerbacks Charles Woodson and Tramon Williams are added to your roster. After the 4-12 2005 season, Mike Sherman and most of the coaching staff were fired, and Mike McCarthy is your new head coach. John Jones is your new president, and you finish with an 8-8 record. Kicker Mason Crosby, halfback Ryan Grant, and fullback John Kuhn are added to your roster, but you lose Ahman Green. You have no president this year, and you finish with a 13-3 record. In the playoffs, you beat Seattle in the divisional round 42-20, but in the championship game, you lose to the Giants 23-20 in overtime. You add wide receiver Jordy Nelson, tight end Jermichael Finley, guard Josh Sidden, and quarterback Matt Flynn to your roster, and Mark Murphy becomes your new president. In early March 2008, Favre announces that he wants to retire, but later, he decides that he wants to return to the team. Around June, you make it clear that you have moved on from him, and Favre responds by officially coming out of retirement. Seeing as how you have moved on from him, you trade him to the New York Jets. With Rodgers as your QB, you finish with a 6-10 record. Defensive tackle BJ Raji, linebacker Clay Matthews, and offensive tackle TJ Lang are added to your roster. In August 2009, that Favre guy signs with the Vikings and they end up beating you in Week 4 and Week 8. Finishing with an 11-5 record, you lose to the Arizona Cardinals in the wildcard game 51-45. Let's roll a clip.
Extra man on the blitz. Rodgers gets a hand to the face. The ball is out. The Arizona Cardinals win it.
Seeing as how the Packers had a disappointing end to their season and that Favre guy is back in the NFC North, let's check in on him and the Vikings. How'd they do?
3rd down and 15. Favre sprints to his right, throws back across the middle, and he's intercepted. Porter. The return by Porter, and he's brought down with 7 seconds left.
Tackle Brian Bulaga and safety Morgan Bennett are added to your roster, and you finish with a 10-6 record. During the 6 games that you lose, each loss came by a score of 4 points or less, and you even managed to beat that Favre guy in Week 7 and Week 11. During the playoffs, you played the Eagles in the wildcard game where you defeat them 21-16. You play the Falcons in the divisional round where you win 48-21, and as a cherry on top for your season, you get to beat the Bears 21-14 in the championship game. Against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the Super Bowl, an outstanding defensive effort helps you win 31-25. Congratulations on bringing the Lombardi Trophy home.
Wallace picked off. Nick Collins. Nick Collins on the return inside the 10. Leaps for the touchdown.
Wide receiver Randall Cobb is added to your roster, and you hold your 5th stock sale. Not only does Rodgers win his first MVP, but he also finds a cure for the Super Bowl hangover, going 15-1 during the regular season. Your offense is so dominant that in 11 games, you were able to score 30 or more points, and in 6 games, you were able to score 40 or more points. With an offensive unit this good, and a record as good as 15-1, surely you'll make it back to the Super Bowl, right? Unfortunately, you decide to crash and burn to a 9-7 Giants team at Lambeau by a score of 37-20 in the divisional round. Matt Flynn and Nick Collins are gone, and a labor dispute between the NFL Referees Association and the NFL forces the NFL to hire replacement refs for the first 3 weeks of the season. You may be asking yourself, why is this relevant to you? Well, let me play a clip from a Monday Night Football game between you and the Seattle Seahawks.
Is a Wilson loft to the end zone, which is fought for by Tate with Jennings simultaneous. Who has it? One guy goes up, touchdown. The other said no time.
How does MD Jennings not get credit for the interception? I have no idea.
Call on the field stands. Touchdown.
This call was so bad that by Thursday Night Football, the NFL and the NFL Referees Association were able to come together and work out their differences. Despite the Fail Murray, you're able to finish with an 11-5 record. In the wildcard game, you beat the Minnesota Vikings 24-10. Unfortunately, in the divisional game, you lose to the San Francisco 49ers 45-31. Running back Eddie Lacy, tackle David Bakhtiari, and safety Micah Hyde are added to your roster, and Donald Driver, Ryan Grant, Greg Jennings, and Charles Woodson are gone. During the Week 7 game, Jermichael Finley suffers a scary spinal cord injury, and this will be the end of his career. During Week 9, Rodgers suffers a broken collarbone injury, and he is out until Week 17. With Rodgers, you go 5-2. Without him, though, you go 2-5-1. You end the year with an 8-7-1 record, and you lose to the San Francisco 49ers by a score 23-20 in the wildcard game. Center Corey Lindsey, wide receiver Devontae Adams, safety HaHa Clinton-Dix, and linebacker Julius Peppers are added to your roster. You start the year with a 1-2 record, and Rodgers tells everyone to RELAX, and you end the year with a 12-4 record. Rodgers is able to win his second MVP, and in the playoffs, you beat the Cowboys in divisional round 26-21. Let's play a clip from this non-controversial game.
4th down and 2. Here's one down the sideline. Pass caught by Dez Bryant.
An eternity later.
After review, it has been determined that the receiver did not maintain possession of the football during the process of the catch. The ball comes loose, hits the ground. Therefore, the ruling is an incomplete forward pass.
During the NFC Championship game, though, you play against the Seattle Seahawks, and let me be honest, of all the playoff losses during the Aaron Rodgers era, this one probably stings the most. Your defense plays well, and they're able to force 4 interceptions and 1 turnover. Despite all the turnovers, you're only able to score 6 points because of the Legion of Boom. By halftime, you're up 16-0, and with 5 minutes left in the fourth, you're up 19-7. After scoring a touchdown with 2 of 9 remaining in the game, Seattle is lining up to try an onside kick. Let's see what happens.
Good kick up into the air.
After recovering the onside kick, Seattle is able to march down the field and score a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Fortunately, off of the leg of Mason Crosby, you're able to force the game into overtime. Unfortunately, in overtime, your defensive unit is exhausted and you lose 28-22. This is a season that will always be remembered for two beautiful Hail Mary passes from Rodgers.
It's going to get there. He turned 32 yesterday. Does he have a vintage moment in him? In the end zone, it is caught!
He resets Starks. They are going to bring pressure again. Rodgers is going to roll away, throws it up in the air, says a prayer, and Janis does not stop!
Additionally, you finish with a 10-6 record, and your fans call for Jeff Janis to start over Davante Adams at wide receiver. During the playoffs, you defeat the Redskins in the wildcard round 35-18. In the divisional round, though, you lose to the Arizona Cardinals 26-20 because no one can cover or tackle Larry Fitzgerald during overtime.
Palmer extending the play, crosses the field, Larry Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald is going to take it into Green Bay territory. Larry Fitzgerald inside the 30, the 20.
If he scores, it's over.
Defensive tackle Kenny Clark is added to the roster and BJ Raji is gone. Davante Adams has his breakout season and, after a 4-6 start, Rodgers tells Pat Carina that you'll quote-unquote run the table. After his pep talk, you proceed to go on a 6-game win streak and you're able to enter the postseason. During the wildcard round, you face off against the Giants and you show them why it's never good to have a boat party in a 38-13 victory. In Dallas against the Cowboys in the divisional round, off of the leg of Mason Crosby, you're able to escape with a 34-31 victory. In the NFC Championship, though, it's not even close. With a very dominating offense and a very special defense, the Falcons are able to decimate you 44-21. Hopefully they'll beat those pesky Patriots in the Super Bowl. Running back Aaron Jones and tight end Martellus Bennett are added to the roster, and TJ Lang, Eddie Lacy, Micah Hyde, Jared Cook, and Julius Peppers are gone. Martellus Bennett will also be gone in November. Despite a 4-1 start, Rodgers suffers a broken collarbone injury in Week 6 and you end the year with a 7-9 record. Without Rodgers, your team is so bad that you will almost lose to the eventual 0-16 Browns in overtime.
Got Josh Gordon one-on-one away from trips. There it is.
3rd and 2. And now Kaiser in trouble. He's looking around. The ball is batted into the air. And is it intercepted?
QB Deshaun Kaiser, tight end Jimmy Graham, tight end Mercedes Lewis, cornerback Jair Alexander, and wide receiver Marquez Valdes-Scantling are added to the roster, and Morgan Burnett, Jordy Nelson, Brett Hundley, HaHa Clinton Dix, and Ty Montgomery are gone. Brian Gutekunst is the new general manager, and Mike McCarthy is let go on December 2nd after a loss to the Arizona Cardinals. Joe Philbin steps in to serve as the interim head coach, and you may be asking yourself, what happened? Well, despite Rodgers being back and healthy, your team is absolutely abysmal, and you finish with a 6-9-1 record. With your season over, let's check in on the Chicago Bears. They had a pretty good offense and an excellent defense. Surely they made a lot of noise in the postseason, right? Right?
And he hits the upright again. That's impossible. I get back. He does it again.
Linebackers Zadarius and Preston Smith are added to your roster, as well as safety Adrian Amos, guard Billy Turner, defensive tackle Rashawn Gary, center Eldon Jenkins, and safety Darnell Savage, and Randall Cobb and Clay Matthews are gone. Matt LaFleur is your new head coach, and despite finishing the season 13-3, the season feels a little off. Your leads are never safe, and you struggle to finish off your opponents. During the divisional round, you defeat Seattle 28-23, but in the championship round, you lose to the 49ers 37-20. Congratulations on lasting in the NFL for 100 seasons. With your first pick of the 2020 NFL Draft, you select quarterback Jordan Love. Let's see if we have any fan footage reacting to this non-controversial pick.
The pick is in! The pick is in! We moved up 4 spots and we gave up a 4th. Oh, who are we gonna get? Please God, not Jordan Love.
An eternity later.
With the 26th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Jordan Love, quarterback.
Are you me?
Jimmy Graham, Tramon Williams, Blake Martinez, and Brian Bulaga are gone, and you finish with a 13-3 record. Rodgers wins his 3rd MVP, and unfortunately, in practice on December 31st, David Bakhtiari tears his ACL. During the divisional round of the playoffs, you defeat the LA Rams 32-18. but against the Buccaneers in the NFC Championship game, you suffer from a 31-26 loss. While your defense performs well and they're able to force 3 Tom Brady interceptions, the Buccaneers defense proves to be too strong and you can't recover from 5 sacks and only 6 points off of those 3 interceptions. You add wide receiver Amari Rodgers, Randall Cobb, linebacker Devondre Campbell, cornerback Rasul Douglas and Eric Stokes, as well as center Josh Myers to your roster. Despite this being the last dance for Rodgers and Adams, you get blown out by the Saints in Week 1, 38-3. Furthermore, drama ensues in November as Rodgers gets COVID and it's revealed that he misled the public about his vaccination status. Your special teams ranks 32nd overall and they're the only thing holding you back as you go 13-4. Against the 49ers in the divisional round of the playoffs, your special teams rears its ugly head as they give up a touchdown off of a blocked punt as well as 2 field goals.
Kick was down the middle and...
Additionally, between November 2021 and February 2022, you held your most recent stock sale. Linebacker Quay Walker and wide receivers Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Sammy Watkins are added to the roster, while Kevin King, Equanimeous St. Brown, MVS, Zadarius Smith, Billy Turner, and Amari Rodgers are gone. Additionally, Sammy Watkins will be gone in December, and Davante Adams was traded to the Raiders in late March. You're sitting with an 8-8 record and you're in control of your own destiny. With 1 game remaining in the season, a win over the Lions will enable you to enter the playoffs where anything is possible. Let's see if we have any footage from the end of this game.
Here's a blitz. Can Rodgers beat it? Big ball downfield, and it is intercepted!
An eternity later.
Season comes down to a snap. And Goff is looking to throw it. He throws it. It's caught for the first down!
Safety Jonathan Owens, defensive end Lucas Van Ness, and tight end Luke Musgrave are added to the roster, and Randall Cobb, Mason Crosby, Adrian Amos, Mercedes Lewis, and Rasul Douglas are gone. But what about Rodgers? His relationship with your team has been uneasy for a bit of time, and surely he must have resolved the situation in a non-problematic way, right? During the offseason, Rodgers decides to spend 4 days in darkness, and shortly afterwards, you decide to trade him to the New York Jets. Now, if I had a nickel for every time you decided to trade a talented but aging quarterback to the Jets, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that's happened twice, right? You also acquire Formation Inc., the company that's responsible for creating Cheesehead products. Under new quarterback Jordan Love, you start the season 2-5. When you click, you play very well, like in Week 13 against the Chiefs, but in other games like Week 14 and 16 are a little bit tougher to watch. Not only do you lose to an underwhelming Giants team 24-22, but you almost lose to 2-13 Panthers. You finish with a 9-8 record, and you make the playoffs. In the wildcard game, you old yell at the Cowboys 48-32, but in the divisional game, you're down 24-21. Time is running out, and you're playing against the 49ers. Surely Love is going to lead you to victory, right? Hopefully? Potentially. Let's roll the clip and see what happens.
Jordan Love's he's got a chance here to match. Realistically, need at least 25 yards. Love, pressure up the middle, runs away, throws across his body, and that is picked. 49ers have it. Greenlaw still up. He needs to get down. Greenlaw still on his feet. He's got to go down. Just go down and the game's over.
So far, halfback Josh Jacobs, kicker Greg Joseph, free safety Xavier McKinney, offensive tackle Jordan Morgan, running back Marshawn Lloyd, and center Jacob Monk have been added to the roster, while Josiah DeGuara, Yosh Nijman, Jonathan Owens, David Bakhtiari, and Devondre Campbell and Aaron Jones are gone. The Packers have 13 World Championships. Against their division rivals, the Packers lead in all their games. Against the Bears, they're 107, 95-6. Against the Lions, they're 106, 76-7. And against the Vikings, they're 66, 58-3. Overall, the Packers have a record of 799, 598, and 38. They are the 3rd oldest team in the NFL, and at the start of the 2024 season, they will have played 67 games at Lambeau Field.